Okay, I think we're all here. So I'll declare the meeting open. I'm Jenny Archibald, the chair of EPOL. Just do the acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the Whadjuk people as the traditional owners of the Greater Fremantle-Wolyallup area, and we recognise that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important today. Apologies, we have an apology from Councillor Kamada, and he is represented tonight by Councillor Graham. Disclosures of interest of Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, I've declared an impartiality interest in item 2308-4, the Fremantle Park Centre. I'm a member of the Fremantle Bowling Club, which automatically makes me a member of that, but I'll be staying in the room and taking the item on its merits.
Councillor Pemberton.
Yes, just making a declaration that in my role at work, I received a donation of some gift vouchers from the Fremantle markets, but they were of no benefit to me personally, and therefore I will stay and debate. So it's an impartiality interest.
Thank you. Are there no others? No. Responses to previous questions taken on notice. The question and the answer is in the agenda. So we'll now go to public question time. And I have down here 3 names to speak, two on Stevens Reserve and 1 on Fremantle Park. So are there any others of people who wish to speak? We do have the CEO from the Fremantle Markets here who is here to answer any questions should we have any. Okay, well then first on the list is Tanya Smith. That's great, thank you. If you'd like to come forward, we allow 3 minutes to speak. I guess if there's 2 of you, we might be a bit
that's right, I think we've worked it out that we
can... And if you could give your name...
Sure.
So we can record it, thank you.
Sure. Madam Chair, Madam Mayor, councillors, thanks so much for the opportunity here today. My name's Phil Holman. I represent the Joint Management Committee of Stevens Reserve and also am a Vice President on the Committee of Fremantle District Cricket Club. So as I only have 3 minutes, I'm going to get right to the point. I firstly want to say thank you to Glenn and his team, with Ryan and others, for putting up this item today. I'd like to say from the JMC we do support this item going forward. If I can just add a little bit of context to this though, Fremantle District Cricket Club was established in 1852. We've been at Stevens Reserve for 70 years, and the Hockey Club established in 1933 and been at Stevens Reserve since 1969. Currently, the Hockey Club has 3 Australian representatives and 10 state representatives playing for the Hockey Club with 637 members. Fremantle Cricket Club has 6 state and Australian cricket players, one recently been made captain of the International 2020 side, has a successful 3-time captain of the Australian Big Bash, and also the captain of the West Australian Sheffield Shield, successful this year as well. So needless to say, we are the pinnacle of state representation that all juniors and local community juniors aspire to play. And this is all because of the state of the fields. Now, we've been very lucky to have 19 years of the same curator that understands what they're doing. Unfortunately, we're faced at the moment where that curator has turned over. That leaves us in the unfortunate position with, due to the turnover, the state of unemployment and inflation, we really need some assistance to be able to bring in, I guess, new curators to keep that legacy alive. So I don't think there's really much more we can add, other than I can say, in addition to some of the information you have, both Fremantle Hockey and the Cricket Club are going to double their input into the Joint Management Committee this year, because we believe that that is really important. And also the Fremantle Cricket Club has committed to spend $19,000 on acquiring the current curator's equipment, so that we are well and truly prepared to go into the season not needing for any machinery or equipment. So hopefully I made that in 3 minutes. Am I required to answer or field any questions?
I'll just ask if there are any questions. Councillor Pemberton.
Hi, thanks for
Hi.
coming, and I'm really sorry to hear that Pepe has decided to leave. I just wanted to ask, in terms of the timing and transition and so on, has he already ended the job, or is he still there for a period of time, or what is the anticipated departure time? And I suppose I'm asking that partly around the caretaking of the actual field, but also in terms of what happens with the dwelling on the site.
Right, okay. So I see that question in 3 parts. First part is he resigned with his notice period and finished on the 1st of July. He has been standing in some assistance and assisting us in some areas, and who said volunteering was easy, by the way. The other thing is that we've been able to implement an interim measure that Pepe helped us get, that will get us through the lawn mowing and line marking through the hockey season that is required for the juniors playing on the site for now, and hockey have been very reasonable in being able to shift some of the games to be able to accommodate us, making sure that the amount of fields we needed were there. And also in the agreement we had with Pepe is vacating the house, I think, is now the 16th of September. And he'll be vacating from there. Okay.
Any further questions? No? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Now I have, I think it's Phil Holman. Oh, sorry, Tanya Smith, Phil Holman. Tanya Smith, did you wish to speak? No? No? Okay, great. John O'Brien, who's speaking on Fremantle Park. Sorry, Phil.
Good evening, everybody. And thank you to the city officers for the work you've done on with respect to our application, and to the councillors for the chance to speak to you all this evening. So why am I here? Basically chasing money. The problem, quite simple. 3 all-volunteer clubs, membership about 900 people, have had the responsibility of running what is essentially a community asset foisted onto them by the city. We're very appreciative of what we've got, but all volunteer clubs find it very hard to run an operation of that size. Prior to the merger, the clubs were simple operations, run very simply with the objective of making very small surpluses to fund small equipment upgrades, conduct club functions, basically stay afloat. No great plans. Now they have to run a centre with much higher costs. Insurance at $20,000 per annum, energy costs $30,000 per annum, all currently under review, and employ paid management. And that's the issue, the paid management that are needed to run a centre and market it to the wider community. Under the original MOU between the city and the council, the city and the centre, it was estimated that revenue would be much higher than it's actually transpired to be. We haven't even reached half the revenue targets for a variety of reasons, and substantial losses have been incurred by the centre in trying to pay management staff on their own. It's been very, very difficult. We believe that if we get some money from you, from the council over the next 12 months, it will stabilise the finances, enable us to stabilise the employment of management and admin staff, and correctly present this function centre to the public. What can we do? There's opportunities with the upstairs area, which sits empty 5 days a week. If we can get people in there on a regular basis, every day of the week, it will generate enormous revenue. We need to market that better. We can attract more sponsors if we've got a stable future. People know that we're not travelling well, and it's made it difficult to get sponsors. We could possibly look at cutting a grass green. This is the bowling club. We have 3. We could probably get by with 2, save $30,000 a year with cutting back to 2. We're also looking at the possibility, and we hope to do this collaboratively with the council, putting in maybe a child's playground, or maybe even some beach volleyball facilities there. We need to talk about that, but they're measures that are being actively considered by the membership to prolong the life of the centre. All to be done with the centre, all to be done, as I say, with the city, in conjunction with other funders, And who knows, maybe even the council could nominate someone to sit on our committee. We have 9 representatives, but it would be wonderful to have the input of the people from the city. Also, getting this money might help stabilise the position because we've got a burning fuse. We have a long-term problem with the replacement of the synthetic greens, and the tennis clubs have a similar problem. No money's been put aside into a sinking fund to cover any replacement. One synthetic green probably costs 150 to 200,000 to replace. We've been operating for 3 years and there's no money in the bank to fund that. So for a variety of reasons, we need your help with the short-term, medium-term and long-term issues which confront the centre, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, John. Are there any questions? Councillor Mofflin.
Thanks, John, for taking the time, and also thanks for contacting me the other day to have a conversation. Appreciate it and the work that you put into the centre. Can you just, as a thought, was it the original plan was overly ambitious as to the ability for the clubs to run the centre? And then the second question, if there was no management employed, what would that mean for the centre as well then?
Well, it was ambitious on 2 sides, really, I suppose, the upfront position. The revenue was estimated to be something up around $1 million a year. There was to be a cafe in there generating $175,000 a year. Bar sales are probably $600,000 or $700,000 a year. And out of those sales were to come the revenue to cover the costs of management, etc. Bar sales are probably half what was estimated, and there's no cafe. Revenues from functions, etc., is also well down on what was estimated. So yes, we've had 2 cracks at operating with paid management. In both cases, we've lost $50,000 to $80,000 during the tenure of their time in office. We did have a period there last year between about May, June 22 and December 22 where we didn't have any senior management. The clubs virtually ran it themselves. They managed to break even. But again, with the longer term in mind, there's no money being put aside at all for the eventual replacement of assets and so on. The club was really treading water, going nowhere. I just felt at that rate it would gradually get further and further into the mire. Thus the reason for the approach this evening to arrest the decline, employ professional staff, take a bit of the pressure off the volunteers. And I must point out there are many, many volunteers putting time into that organisation at the lower level, tennis, bowling and workers club. At that level they all work. They still do what they did before to run those clubs, but with the higher level of operation, it's beyond most people who are either retired or working to put the time in to make the centre the business success it has to be.
Thank you, John. Councillor Pemberton has a question.
Just a quick question. In terms of the on-site existing facilities, and I'm sort of thinking for functions and that sort of thing, do you have an existing sound system and so on?
There is a
it
sound
all
system,
set up to go?
which seems, I'm told, has a very low switch-off point.
Yeah, I hear that's a problem.
Many a good function has been stopped in its tracks,
Wow.
so I'm told. And we've had some interesting neighbours as well.
Yeah. Okay, I have heard about that problem, and I'm really sorry to hear it. Thank you.
Right. Are there any further questions? No? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the end of public question time. There are no further comments to make. We'll just go through and then we'll deal with the items. We'll just do item 6 is petitions, and I don't believe we have any. No. Deputations, there are none. Special deputations are nil. Presentations, nil. Confirmation of the minutes. I'll move the minutes of the Finance Policy, Operations and Legislations Committee dated 12th of July 2023, seconded by Councillor Mofflin. No? Yes. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. Elected member communication. Is there any? No. Reports and recommendations. So we'll go first to Stephen's reserve and item 3, and then we'll do item 4, and then we'll go back to the markets, and which may take us a little bit longer. So, so I will move the officer's recommendation for FPOL 23083, which is Stevens Reserve Grounds Maintenance. Is there a seconder? This is for the officer's recommendation. Seconded by Councillor Pemberton. And I'm aware that we have two amendments for this, one by Councillor Pemberton and one by Councillor Thompson. So if we wish to discuss it first and then move the amendments, or if people are happy to go straight to the amendments, that's fine. Is there any discussion besides the amendments? No? Well, then perhaps we'll move to the amendments. Councillor, which councillor would like to go first? Councillor Pemberton. Seconded by Councillor Moughlin. Councillor Pemberton, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and it's very interesting to hear that the cricket club has been there for 70 years. That's really impressive, and I guess I was really shocked to find out. I did know that there was a rolling lease on the club, but I had no idea that it was over 2 decades of rolling, which is not ideal at all. So I understand there are conversations happening about formalising a lease, which I think is a very good thing to do as soon as possible, so that there's some security ongoing. And I guess this was also partly around making sure that the contribution from the city was acknowledged in the same way we're now trying to consistently apply across all clubs and organisations that we contribute to. So I understand that will be potentially written into the lease, but I just wanted to make it sure that was clear and consistent in line with what is on one of the other items on the agenda even.
I just had a question, and I don't think I missed it in the report. Are we waiving any rates for the cricket club? I noticed in the information provided to us of their costs, it does include city rates, and I don't know if that's the portion that would be above a waiver, or whether, in fact, we are giving them money that they are then going to be giving back to us.
I'll put the question to the Director of City Business.
I'm happy to wait for an answer if it needs to be looked at.
We'll get back. Yep. Is there any further discussion on Councillor Pemberton's amendments, which are on part 2, 3, and 4? No. Councillor Moughlin.
Yeah, just more of a question and a clarification around whether this agreement's with the Fremantle Cricket Club or with the Joint Management Committee itself. Because we do, I think there's, reading part here, we talk about Fremantle Cricket Club, but we also talk about the Joint Management Committee. So it'd be good just to get a clarification on who it's with.
We'll go to the Manager for Parks.
Thank you, through the chair. So the existing lease arrangements with the Joint Management Committee, and the contribution the city currently gives is to the Joint Management Committee.
Did you wish to speak further?
Does that then mean we need to make some amendments to the, recommendation where it refers to Fremantle Cricket Club lease terms and the like? Yep.
So that might be amending part 3, delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to
Yeah, 1 and 2.
JMC, yes. Yeah. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I believe that's been amended. Thank you. Councillor Graham?
The Joint Management Committee could be the Joint Management Committee of any committee. So I think that we might have to be a little bit more specific in that it's still actually to do with Stephen Street's Reserve or something. When I was initially reading the item, and I kept on seeing JMC, I had to refer back to JMC and then the Joint Management Committee. But doesn't actually specifically say anything about the cricket club or the hockey club. So I'm just a bit pedantic, but I think we need to be a bit more clear. I would have thought.
The title of the attachment, the confidential.
Yeah, I think they've picked it up and corrected it. And it is only for Stevens Reserve, so I don't think there would be any other JMCs for Stevens Reserve. That this would be it. Yep. So they've picked that up. Yep. Okay. Any further discussions? A discussion on Councillor Pemberton's amendment. Okay. All those in favour of the amendment? Yep.
I was hoping to get an answer on the rates because that would be
Yep.
part of the amount acknowledged in Councillor Pemberton's amendment. If
You could move.
yeah, okay, sure.
So that was unanimous. That was on Councillor Pemberton's amendment. Now we'll move to Councillor Thompson's amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just move the amendment under recommendation 1, noting that in doing so, I'll wait for a second.
Seconded by Councillor Moughlin.
Look, it's fairly simple. It's just simply splitting up recommendation 1 into 2 and adding an A and a B and adding the B, which is it seems so obvious in a way, but I think it's worth us putting this, and I've done the same for the other one as well, because I think it's a good reminder for us to say say why we're allocating this expenditure, and then it goes back to our strategic plan. And I think it's very important, probably for us, especially since we're going through this process of looking at our strategic plan, to remind ourselves why we do these things. And so, while it may seem axiomatic, I think it's worth us actually putting it in the recommendation.
Any further discussion on this, on Councillor Thompson's amendment? No? Then we'll put the amendment. Councillor Graham?
Being pedantic again, Madam Chair, it changes the first item, the first number there, point 1, which means that we don't talk about the Stevens Street JMC anymore. If you look at Councillor Pemberton's 1, we've changed that to Stevens Street JMC, and now we go to Councillor Thompson's number 1, and it's made no mention of what we're discussing.
It does refer to the lease terms
yes.
for the Stevens Reserve. Do you really?
I think it should be tidied up, but anyway.
Under the existing lease terms with the Stevens Reserve JMC, is that what we had in the other one? Yeah. Did you guys get that? Yep. Okay, we've amended that, so it's clear. Any further comment? All those in favour of the amendment? That is unanimous. Thank you. So now we're dealing with the item as a whole. The Mayor wished to speak, yeah?
Just if the Director wants to come back to us on the question of rates.
So through the chair, in the current budget, the hockey club receives the maximum 10k concession for rates, but there's currently no mention of the cricket club receiving a concession. It's assumed that that's a joint concession for the JMC.
So, in terms of the total value of the subsidy, I guess we just would want that to include the fact that they are being sponsored for a further 10k through a rates concession, just to be consistent with the other clubs that we asked to recognise for rates concessions. I don't know if we need an amendment at this point, but in terms of the recommendation through to council, just to, if we can confirm that and include that in the recommendation. Cool.
Thank you. That's been picked up. So is there any further discussion on this item? We'll put the motion as amended. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. So that will go on to the full council meeting, which will be in 2 weeks' time. That clear? Yep. For Stevens Reserve people? Yep, good. Okay. So we'll now move on to item 4, which is dealing with the Fremantle Park Centre. And I will move the officer's recommendation. Could I get a seconder to that, please? Seconded by Councillor Pemberton. Is there any discussion? We do have an amendment by Councillor Mofflin and an amendment by Councillor Thompson. So there's no immediate discussion. We could go to Councillor Mofflin's amendment. Would you like to take over?
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Mofflin, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Mofflin.
I suppose I don't really have too much more to add than the reasons that were included there, but I think in my mind that currently with the state of the centre, it's important that we have some controls over those funds going out the door and immediately handing over $60,000 in a lump sum, I don't think would be the most sound financial management. So just including when a proposed budget amendment comes back to include a payment schedule and how that payment is approved as part of that process.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, we'll put the amendment. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. So we'll now move on to Councillor Thompson's amendment. Councillor Thompson, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move my amendments on 1 and 3.
Seconded by Councillor Mofflin.
Thank you. So basically, Amendment 1 is just simply to show that our request clearly fits within the city's strategic objectives. And recommendation 2 is a bit of wordsmithing to make it read a bit better, I think, but also to ensure adequate measures are included so council can make a decision about whether our support is being effective in due time.
Very good. Is there any further discussion? The Mayor.
Just noticing, Councillor Thompson, in 3, you've lost the wording around the provider report to council. Was that intentional, or can we add back in something about that report being provided to council? Yeah. So perhaps we could put in something like to be provided back. Provide a report to council by February 2024. Maybe we can put it in, slip it in there. Yeah. Yeah. Either.
This is talking about amending part 3. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's member clubs by February 24. And we could just add and report back to council. Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the sentence,
yep.
if you prefer. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And the mover is happy with that change, yes. Okay, is there any further discussion? All those in favour of the amendment? That is unanimous, thank you. So now we go back to the overall item. Is there any further discussion? Well, then we'll move the whole item. All those in favour? It's unanimous, thank you. So that item will also go on to full council in 2 weeks. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's them. So now we will move FPOL 23082, which is the proposal for major land transaction at the Fremantle Markets. Sorry? Yep. Seconded by Councillor Graham. Is there any discussion on this item? And this item will also be going on to full council. Councillor Vucic.
Thank you. I've got quite a bit to say about the data that's been used and which supports the officer's recommendation. But I want to say that this is not a reflection on the officers and the hard work that they've done to compile that information for us. But as an elected member, I also have a role to perform. There's a lot to digest in the markets business case before council this evening. I'm going to focus on the data which supports the officer's recommendation to authorise the CEO to finalise and enter into another 20-year lease with FMPL. On page 23 of the agenda, a total of 387 public submissions was received via the advertising process. 88% were supportive of the business plan and awarding the lease to the Murdochs. 9% were in opposition and 3% were neutral. On the face of it, the winning number is 88% and the losing number is 9%. We are being asked to vote on the officer's conclusions drawn from that data to continue with FMPL and another 20-year lease without going to tender. Is the data valid? Is the data reliable? Does the data give us confidence in the measurement of the submissions submitted? Reliability and validity are the two standard thresholds which measures the level of confidence in data. Reliability refers to the consistency of a measure, whether the results can be reproduced under the same conditions. Validity refers to the accuracy of a measure, whether the results really do represent what they are supposed to measure. It is a fact that 88% is higher than 9%. It is reasonable to conclude that the data should support a yes vote for the business plan. However, the data, once unpacked, tells a different story. I'm going to look at 4 areas of this data. The first one being the location of the 387 residents. It's not presented in our information. Not all respondents are of equal value. What is missing is a discriminating scale between the ratepayers and residents, who are the major shareholders in the Fremantle markets, the respondents who work in Fremantle, and the respondents who are visitors in Fremantle, and indeed other respondents who are friends of Fremantle. The data does not meet the validity or accuracy threshold. For all we know, the respondents could be located overseas, interstate, north of the river, or just next door in Coburn. The perceived bias and error in the non-disclosure of a location renders the 88% data null and void. The second area is the evidence of ChatGPT and AI responses and templated responses. It is reasonable to presume that 88% of the respondents ought to be at least human. Prima facie, about 40% of the content is so similar that it is either AI generated or someone had a few samples, or rather a few templates that directed a group of respondents in their submission writing. To test if ChatGPT is used is easy. I used Turnitin and Scriber. You select a piece of text, you pay some money, and the report shows high levels of plagiarism and AI-generated content. This type of activity can be helpful for individuals. However, in the case of a business plan, where 88% implies confidence and accuracy, this does not meet the reliability and validity thresholds. The Council is responsible to ensure that the 88% has a high level of accuracy, or they are obliged to draw attention to the plagiarism and the AI assistance. Universities, organisations, and companies are now using such technologies to verify the authenticity, accuracy, and reliability of information supplied to them in the various business and cultural dealings. The 88% data is contaminated, rendering it null and void. Conflict of interest. FMPL and market stallholders is the third area. FMPL and the stallholders are conflicted, which disqualifies the Murdochs and market stallholders from being respondents or being anywhere near someone who is a legitimate respondent. Both FMPL and the stallholders stand to directly benefit from the extension of the lease. The 108 responses from FMPL and stallholders are null and void. This data does not meet the validity threshold. Sample size. The Fremantle Business Plan tool for data collection was inadequate. It was inadequate to just, and I quote, advertise the availability of the business plan for comment and then consider any submissions received in relation to the proposed transaction. The sample size ought to have been around 1,700 respondents. The sample size is predicated on 32,000 ratepayers and residents in Fremantle, a 99% confidence level with a 3% margin of error. The 88% represents about 340 respondents. The sample size was too small, even if the 340 respondents were all ratepayers and residents of Fremantle. The threshold standards of reliability and validity are important in any survey, submissions, or community feedback. Our confidence in the data, which gives us confidence in our decision making, is predicated on the strong measurements of accuracy and reliability. In my view, once the data has been unpacked, at best it shows that 88% is akin to a tick and flick exercise for compliance purposes. These are the reasons for not voting for the officer's recommendation. However, we can still remedy the situation. Is there any support for a deferred motion, which will give us time for our third party to examine the data before the next council meeting? If I put the motion up, is there a seconder?
Is there a seconder for the deferral motion? And I'm just mentioning that if the motion is supported, then there is no further discussion and the motion is deferred. Is that my understanding correct? Yes, I mean, you vote on it, but then that's it, it's deferred. You're saying it's deferred for what reason?
The data's flawed. I've just given you enough evidence here to say
just in very brief, you're saying because the data is insufficient?
It's flawed on the fact that the location of the 387 respondents was not part of this information. It is critical. We want to know how many people live in Fremantle, how many people live surrounding, how many people live overseas. Very critical. We're not of the same value as a ratepayer and a resident. If I'm a friend of Fremantle or if I work here or, you know, these are all very important factors. We all don't have the same value.
Or perhaps I could just ask if the director or the CEO would know where the majority of the people who responded actually came from. Somebody might have that answer, but if they don't, then we will go back to your discussion.
Through the chair, we are possibly able to collect some of that data and present it together statistically if it's of interest to council prior to the council meeting. That would require some further analysis of the data we've received though.
CEO wishes to speak.
Sorry, through the chair. I think we need to understand this item's already going to council, so we don't need to defer it to council. If we were to defer it to next month, remember council goes into caretaker provisions from the 7th of September, which would make us unable to make a decision until after the election if we deferred it to the next cycle of council.
Okay. So that's the one point, location, very critical. Second point is that the FMPL and the stallholders, they're conflicted. They need to be out of the respondents. They're conflicted. And there's 108 of them conflicted.
So, Councillor Vucic, do you wish to move your deferral motion, but it is already going on to council anyhow, and in the interim we can bring that data to the council meeting, the data that you're asking for. So it would seem to me better to have the full data at the council meeting.
So you will provide the data on the location. you will provide a response on the conflict of interest. I'm prepared to concede this sample size. It is what it is, but the other three, I think that needs to be remedied.
Yeah,
You know, I might say that we're here for a decision-making process, and we don't have essential information as an elected member to make that decision. I can't speak for anybody else in this chamber, but I speak that that is critical information, and that has an impact on a yes and a no vote. It may well have an impact, and I do think that we should have this and not sort of supply it 2 weeks later for a council meeting, because we are making a decision tonight as well.
Yep. Councillor Vucic, the CEO wishes to make a comment.
So just through the chair, yes, we can provide location where it has been provided through the responses. Absolutely, because we have removed data from the responses to protect people's identity. But where they have nominated their location, we can provide it. Not everyone would have done that though, so that is very difficult to achieve.
Well, I think it's going to be a major problem. Thank you.
Okay. The Mayor wishes to speak.
A couple of things. The agendas are published on Thursday nights, which is great. Gives us an opportunity to ask questions as elected members if there's more data that we need. I'd suggest if people want more data for committee, it's really good to send an email through once you've got the agenda and had a look. Whether this is a pertinent issue or not is not so significant for me in terms of the market should be a destination for people across Western Australia, visitors, tourists, everyone else. If people are highly supportive of the markets beyond the borders of Fremantle, I think that's a really good thing. I think the point about conflict of interest is if, let's just say, if stallholders all submitted that they didn't, they perhaps supported the other side of the case, I suspect that argument wouldn't be being made right now. The fact that they do support the business case, I think is being used in a way it would not be used if they were saying that they wanted something different. So it'll be interesting to see that data. Certainly wouldn't change how I would vote on this issue. But I think all elected members should take that opportunity to request data that they want on an item prior to it coming to committee if it's going to be required for them to make a decision.
Thank you. Councillor Vucic, did you have another
Yes.
comment?
I find the Mayor's comments disingenuous. I'm not arguing.
Councillor Vucic, could we just stick to the debate
I
on
am.
the agenda?
I
No,
am.
well, let's get back to the agenda.
I am. This is not an argument for and against. This is an argument. I did a degree in this. This is an argument of you are collected data, you present data, it needs to meet the thresholds, what would be considered good data upon which a decision can be made. This data, the way it was collected and presented, doesn't meet that threshold. That's just my point. It's not whether you want the case or not for the Murdochs. Not at all.
Councillor Vucic, I might just mention that for most of the information that we get from people on public consultation, a good deal of it is presented pretty much the way that the data was presented to us in this agenda. So, but on that said, the CEO and the director have said that they will be able to bring information to us at the council meeting.
Can I just make one last comment on data? We changed the name of King Square on 6%. And yes, I do have a problem with the way we collect data. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the committee? Okay, we'll put the motion, but this, sorry, Councillor Pemberton, you wish to? No? This is going to council. So all those in favour of the motion as it is in the agenda? Those against? Councillor Vucic is against. Thank you. So that will go to the council meeting in 2 weeks. Thank you. So now we will go back to FPOL, the only thing we can actually make a decision on tonight. The FPOL 23081, which is the tender for the bulk waste verge collections. So I will. You're happy to move that? Okay, Councillor Thompson has moved that, seconded by the Mayor. Yes. Is there any discussion on this item?
Oh, just to
Councillor
say,
Graham.
Just a question, and Councillor Thompson might be able to answer this. It was interesting that there was only the one respondent from the Western mob, and perhaps Councillor Thompson can give us a bit more info on why that was and where we all sit in this rubbish loop.
Councillor Thompson.
thank you, Madam Chair. WMRC were, I think, was the council that actually introduced the introduced the Verge Valet system, and they, after quite a long trial, and they've been very successful with it. And indeed, I think the town of Cambridge and probably a couple of others have also taken up WMRC. Oh yes, so we've got 6 of them. So so they're commercially there are no commercial entities that I'm aware of that do it on this scale. So that's why WMRC were probably the only one that put in a tender. I think was there the only one, or was there more than one? That was it. Yep. Yep. So I'm very happy with it, Madam Chair. I think it's a very good step forward, and I think it'll be excellent.
Great. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Moughlin.
Just extending on that, and question to staff in regards to the capacity of the Western Regional Council to do the work, with 6 local governments sitting under them at the moment, and then picking up Fremantle. Have you, part of that, the tender process, assured yourselves that they will have the capacity to pick up Fremantle and complete the service here as well?
Through the chair, yes, indeed, we have confirmed they have the capacity to provide the services.
Any further discussion? No. Well, then we'll put the motion. This is a decision, I might add, and I think it's a really good one, and I'm looking forward to seeing it start to happen. So, all those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. That's great. So we'll now move to item 5, which is the Walyalup Reconciliation Action Plan. And we do have Senior Officer Brendan Moore in the room who can answer any questions. Is there any discussion? Oh, sorry, I'll move the item. Moved, seconded by the Mayor. Is there any discussion? No, I think everybody is unanimously supportive.
If I can.
Mayor.
So I guess one thing I just would point out is that we've had a really valuable contribution from the existing RAP group, the RAP group we've had over the past few years, and really well supported by officers. And because we've come to the end of our term with that RAP group, it doesn't mean that those individuals aren't very welcome to come back again. And I think one thing we just want to make clear is we very much want to see some continuity of service, as well as an issue that's been pointed out by some of the RAP group members in terms of elders bringing young people through into these processes as well. So just to acknowledge that it's a turnover, but it's not necessarily completely starting afresh.
Thank you. I mean, Brendan, did you wish to make any comment tonight? You're welcome to, because there's plenty of time. No, I think this is it's great to set another RAP in motion, and be great to see if we can get a bit more activity happening, because the RAP is really important in terms of the reconciliation journey in general. It's not specific to the Southwest Land Council and the Whadjuk Council. So it's the general reconciliation path that the RAP deals with. So it's really important to us. Okay, all those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for coming, Brendan. Okay, so now we move on to notice of motion by Councillor Pemberton, and this again I think is also going to council, isn't it? Yep. Councillor Pemberton, I'll hand over to you. Yeah. Sorry? Seconded by Councillor Mofflin.
Thank you, and I should give credit where it's due, and also a little bit of an apology, really, because this came about from a conversation I had while door knocking on Fothergill Street in 2019. So a resident I was talking to there talked about community safety issues and that sort of thing, as well as creating smoke-free spaces, but importantly, kind of the way that this could potentially be used as a tool around the kind of behaviours that go on in our kind of core civic heart and premier public place. I had a good chat with the manager of field services today, just to touch base with him about it, and I had a really valuable conversation with him, and he has done some good due diligence on the sidelines of this in talking to other city safety officer teams about these kind of issues. Obviously, the City of Perth has a similar ruling in their key malls, and I've also noticed signage going up in other communities and kind of key places like Leederville and Subiaco and others. So it seems to be a thing that more and more councils are doing. He certainly gave me the impression that, you know, it was the right thing to do, and it is showing leadership and so on an issue that addresses a tactic that addresses a number of issues. And importantly, it gives our safety officers a tool to use. I wanted to be very clear to him that this wasn't about giving our safety officers another job to go out and just have more conflict to deal with, left, right, and centre. But it's really important to understand that our safety officers don't actually have the power to ask people who are street drinking to stop and turn off over their drinks. They actually have to call the police in to do that. And so the smoking is actually a way of giving them a device, a tool that they actually are allowed to enforce and implement. And the idea is about, you know, an education campaign and building a culture where you don't sit around and cause trouble and smoke cigarettes all day in these areas. And it gives our staff an opportunity to have a valid reason that asks people to move away if they want to, you know, smoke cigarettes, but also carry on that behaviour. He also pointed out that there's actually state legislation in place already that says you're not allowed to smoke within 5 metres of a shop or business front door, which means in the high street mall, that's actually probably already the case in some ways, but to actually put signage there to make sure it's clear would be very valuable. He also said that they'd had, the community safety officers have had sort of ongoing feedback and concerns from some of the businesses, particularly the jewellers who have people kind of sitting out the front of their shop, sometimes causing a bit of trouble and so on. And so to have a way of moving people on who are undertaking that kind of behaviour could be very valuable. I do note also that this is just about going out for community consultation. So it's about, you know, putting this proposal to our community and seeing if there is some support, seeing if it is unworkable. But I've seen some good simple signage around some of the other jurisdictions that have done it. Those kind of core flute plastic signage that goes around street poles and things is used in a couple of local areas. I've also seen the sort of printed signs that get pasted onto the ground in other places, and they're just visual cues to try and give people, you know, the signal not to smoke in those areas, and hopefully we can make sure that they're safe and clean and family friendly and so on.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Mofflin?
I just want to thank Councillor Pemberton for bringing this forward. I think it's an important change, and yeah, we're most probably lagging other local governments in terms of dealing with smoking and vaping in public spaces where I don't necessarily think it's an acceptable kind of behaviour in 2023. So thanks.
Councillor Graham?
Yeah, look, I'll put a different spin on it. I fundamentally can't support this motion. You know, we appear to be picking on the poor old hard done buyers again, but yes, they do cause problems around Fremantle, but trying to move them on because they smoke, I think, is not a good look for the city in some respects. You know, the antisocial behaviour has got to be tackled in some other form, and I think that is already with the rangers and the police doing their bits and pieces of what they can. Moving people on is only going to move the problem somewhere else. You're never going to stop these people smoking. I mean, it's in their DNA. Um, you know, we've seen throughout our lifetime, don't smoke, don't smoke, don't smoke, but of course people still smoke. So, you know, I think we've just got to accept it. I mean, they're outside. Councillor Pemberton's already said there's a 5 metre rule, which is state legislation, and I'd prefer to see it stay under the state legislation. You're going to move them on, they're going to get more agitated, and that problem will only go compound from where they go. They're either going to go to Queen Square, where there's already a problem, go to Little Lane, where there's becoming a problem because there's a bus stop there. So, you know, the problem's not going to go away just because you stop it. I mean, what about the bloke who comes from Sydney and walks down Market Street with a fag and turns into the mall, and somebody taps him on the shoulder and says, "You can't smoke here, mate," you'll think, where have I come to, you know? I just think it's an unworkable thing. Sounds good, but the reality is we're tackling the wrong people again. And, you know, God love them, you know, they need a lot of help. They need to be supported in the community. They need to be given a bit of love. And I just think this is a bit of another slap into the face for the poor old down and outers. So yeah, you know, good. It'll mostly go through, but I can't support it.
Thank you. Councillor Fucci?
Councillor Graham has said a lot of what I would like to have said on this issue. I think it needs to be noticed smoking is not a crime. I'm not in favour of turning on people who have got addictions and got enough problems. I think we should be turning our considerable talent to how we're going to have long-term solutions for our antisocial behaviour and our people who require help. I just don't think these types of policies are helpful at all, so I won't be supporting it.
Any other councillors or the mayor wish to speak on this? No. Could I just? I must say, I tend to agree a little with Councillor Graham. I just felt like we were perhaps picking on people who weren't as robust as they could be. So I just was having a look at how it was worded here in the agenda in the report. It says, if we wish to consider a determination as outlined, officers will review this matter further and bring a report back to council to provide appropriate options to prohibit smoking on local government property. So I guess if I was to, I can understand where Councillor Pemberton's coming from, and I kind of have some support for that. But on the other hand, I am quite concerned about the very people who will probably be most at risk of, you know, falling into a position where they are asked to move on. So I would like to understand better just how this might work. Is it done elsewhere? It is outside. It's not in a building. The building thing I never had a problem with, but being outside, the square is a place where people do sit, and it's to many Indigenous people, it's a place to congregate, and for many others as well. So I'm kind of just wondering. The elected member motion says prepare a determination. So can we sort of say prepare a report that looks at the issue of prohibiting smoking? Well, it does go to full council anyway, but the report that would look at the issue of prohibiting smoking with a view to having a determination. under the Local Government Act, but that way the report could give us more data on exactly how it might work and is it done elsewhere. So I'm really putting that to Councillor Pemberton as a thought. Yep.
So firstly, I think that's a question for officers, not for me. There's a process. If it's any local law, it's exactly the same no matter what the issue is. And this is, step 2. Back when Charlie was here, we did the first step, which was about determining all the things that we could potentially make a law about, and deliberately smoking was included in that because we had actually started the conversation back then. As I said, it is already in place. City of Perth malls have done it for like a decade. Leederville and Subi are 2 other local seabed, like city centres that I'm aware of that have done it, but there's certainly a lot of others. As I said, the manager of field services has even engaged with the City of Perth officers about their experience with it and so on. As I also said, it's not about targeting people and having the tourists from Sydney walk down the street and walk into the mall smoking a cigarette and be fined or told off. It's about giving our staff a tool to use if people are causing problems, and it includes smoking. It's also, I've done a lot of work in the homelessness space and on social justice issues. So, I do it with full awareness around not wanting to target people who are disadvantaged and so on. But we also, and it isn't about targeting those individuals, and it isn't about yes, there is a problem with moving people on when they're causing antisocial behaviour, when they're undertaking antisocial behaviour. That's the case no matter what, and it's a real problem. It just constantly shuffles around our city, and that's one of the challenges we have. I'm suggesting that maybe this particular area that we've spent a lot of time and money in making work and be a community civic centre that everyone feels safe and welcome in, can be managed with a slightly higher degree of tools and tactics and so on to encourage the kind of behaviour we want to see. And that's really at the key. This is not about, targeting certain individuals or people who are disadvantaged or on the streets and so on. It's about giving our officers a reason, a legal, valid reason that they are able to engage with somebody causing trouble and asking them to move on or telling them to move on. As I understand it, it's, our officers have got plenty to do. They don't need to be doing this as well. So it's not about giving them an extra job. It's about giving them an extra tool. That's all.
Fair enough. It is going to council. I'm happy to support it going to council. So all those in favour of the motion as put? Those against? Councillor Vucic and Councillor Graham are against. But it will go to council. And perhaps some of this could be clarified on the way through to the council meeting. Okay. We've come to the end of the public section. There is no urgent business and there are no late items. So we're now at the confidential business section. So I will declare the